Okay, so let's go to your superpower. So now we've set aside the hero business. Now we're into the human side of things, not hero, but human. What is your superpower?
I think kind of two. One, I have to say it's my faith because I
Okay.
could not get through any of the stuff I've been through without that, which is basically, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Mm-hmm.
So that, but then I also feel like I'm a very good listener.
Oh, okay.
I think that people tend to confide and share because I listen well. So I guess
Mm.
that's a gift or a superpower, whatever, however you want to.
No, yeah, no, well, we're having fun with this. We're having fun with this. So yes, why couldn't that be a superpower for sure? People tend to confide and share in you. And isn't that interesting? And I'm going to say a little bit because of that little bit of shyness that you present now that people like come into that, lean into that, like, oh, this is a safe person. I can tell her. And isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so your faith, because you know you can do all things, and a good listener, confide and share. How do you know these are your superpowers?
Well, with my faith, I know that I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't have gone through all the things that I've been through without that knowledge and that foundation of knowing that God is right there with me through it all.
Mhm.
So he's my superpower. He's my protector, my everything. But um and I think because people have told me that I'm a good listener.
Okay, right. Okay, when I started this, I thought it would be really fun, particularly with the people I know. And if I don't know somebody, how can I sort of guess what their superpower might be? But I want to tell you what I think your superpower is. And it's interesting because it kind of really it's very much the first one you asked. But see, now I would have said obedience.
Uh
I would say that your superpower is your obedience because you say yes and that's kind of they say in like improv circles that's like one of the very first rules, like if you're improving with somebody in a scene, you don't like go against what they're saying. It's like, oh, okay, yes, oh, we're there, oh, and I'm going to add to it. I mean, I have known you for a lot of years and I see how obedient you are, and I'm saying this in the most honoring way possible, that word obedience. I mean, you live that. I mean, all these things. And listener, Karen lost, was it 6 family members in 7 years?
mhm.
6 close family members. We're talking siblings, parents, in-laws, sibling, parents. I mean, just like lots and lots of people. And you know, each time you obviously felt a tremendous amount of grief that can't be escaped. However, you turned it into good, and that leads us right into one of your passion projects, I'm going to say. And that's the book that you wrote because of the grief you have experienced. So tell us about that. First of all, what's the name of the book?
It's called 828, Hope in the Darkness, a pathway from heartbreak to healing and hope. So
Hope,
really,
okay, 828,
828,
Hope in the Darkness is the
right.
the
The
first
main,
part. Got it.
yeah, the tagline is the other. But um and and it wasn't anything I had ever planned to do. I never really considered myself much of a writer, but after all of these losses and kind of going back to the beginning of the story, which you also know that we have commonalities in, is that we lost our our first son Matthew, and then
Mhm.
later had a miscarriage. And so through that, my husband and I started leading grief support groups called Empty Arms, and had been leading, now it's been almost 30 years that we've been leading that ministry
Wow.
in the church. And but shortly after we had lost, all these other family members in such a short time, I just remember praying to God. It's like, okay, I understand grief. We teach grief basically. And what am I supposed to do with all these additional losses? And it was made very clear to me by a vision, which I think is very weird for people. I mean, I'm not,
No,
you know,
yeah.
it's like, oh no, she's one of those wackies that's,
Well, no, God works in all kinds of ways, and we can't begin to know or understand all the ways. But anyway, so tell us, had a vision.
so he basically gave me this picture of a book, which is the cover of my book. And I kind of started laughing. I'm like, God, really? You want me to write a book? I don't know anything about writing a book. And so, kind of kicking and screaming, I was obedient and
Oh,
finished this book. It took a little while. And thank you, Rechelle, for helping me along the way,
of
because you
course.
read some of the very, very initial versions of it and have some of your story in it as well, which, it includes stories and tools, and it's a culmination of, 30 years of helping people through grief and loss. Yeah.
Right. 30 years of experience because you've been boots on the ground living this some years ago with Matthew and the
Mhm.
miscarriage, and then sort of fast forward to all these losses in that really short period of time. And yes, we do have that in common. In fact, so much in common, both boys, both babies, and dying from the very same uh,
Yes.
heart defect. It's just like, whoa, just so crazy. This is part of why I say that you're obedient. And I want to tell you, listener, that I just finished the book 2 nights ago, and it is everything you said, Karen, and more. It is so full of hope, and it really normalizes grief, and it helps the grieving person understand all the different things they're feeling, both right away and as time goes on, and how it comes back and forth, but it's never quite the same. It kind of meanders around, and like when you start laughing, is it okay if I laugh now? I mean, you just all these things that you feel like, is that okay? You cover all of that in very practical ways. And also you give all these exercises, all these writing prompts or ways to think, charts, graphs, little inventories. I mean, it's such a practical hands-on guide to help a person through their grief. And I think it's also for everyone in that, even if maybe you yourself haven't experienced grief yet, you know someone who has,
Yeah.
who might need this book, or for you to read it and understand what other people go through, how sometimes they don't want to talk, or sometimes they want to talk and they don't want you to forget their loved one. They want you to mention them. Just because they're not here doesn't mean that they've been forgotten. So it's tricky too, because some people like want to hear about their loved one and other times they might not. So there are all these, I don't want to say landmines, but it's like an obstacle course. You really have to kind of navigate it. And you make so many great points about some really good things to say, and then some things maybe not to say. And I think also asking permission of the other person, like, do you want to fill in the blank? Can I fill in the blank? I mean, I just think it's such an important book. And the fact that you ended it with, I want to say there are 12 stories, but I could be making that. I didn't count them, but there are this wonderful handful of stories of people who have been into grief and how God has brought them through that. And maybe they didn't even believe in God in the first place, but just there's so much hope in it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for all of that. And that's my hope and prayer, is that, it will provide some hope and healing to people that are going through it. And, like you said, if if they're not in it now, they will be at some point. And
Yes.
it's not for just loss of life. It's loss of really anything, because when you
Mhm.
lose something that you love, you will grieve.
Right. Right.
Whether it's, you know, loss of a home, loss of a relationship, loss of a job, loss of a dream,
Right.
you're going to grieve. And that grief, it's never going to fully go away
Right.
because, you know, our love never goes away. So
Right.
as long as we're alive, you know, there will be triggers for that loss.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, time does help, and I don't like that, you know, time heals. But time does give a perspective, and it doesn't feel like you're being hit over the head with a 2x4, you know, every moment of every day.
Right. Right.
Like it felt like in the beginning, you know. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And time does heal, but I will say it leaves a scar. How
Mhm.
could it not? Because of what you've been through, because it doesn't negate the experience when the person is no longer physically here on earth or whatever the loss might be.
Right.
It was still real.
Mhm.
I remember this a line from a book, she had been more than her death. I just thought, oh, that is, it's from the book Wally Lamb, and I can't remember I can't remember right now the name of the book. I can see the cover, but I just, for some reason, that just really stuck with me.
Oh,
She had been more than her death. And so I feel that about Matthew. I feel that about our Christian.
then yes.
It's more than that. It's more than that. So is there anything else you want to tell us before we wrap up our time here?
Yeah. You mean our time is already ending?
Yes.
It went so fast.
Yeah.
Um, gosh, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you will put the information about the book in
Yes.
your links or what have you, but
Yes.
you know, I think I feel good about it, and I think that it will be helpful for anyone that reads it. I truly believe in and hope that.
I
Um,
believe that too. And let me just add that this is not the kind of book you have to sit down and read cover to cover. I mean, it's you can set it down for a while, pick it back up, highlight, mark it, go back. I mean, I think it's a great resource. So it's not like, a lot of times people are overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, no, just
right.
sit down, read a couple pages, set it aside. Don't you agree?
Yep, yep, because there are stories all mixed in through it, so it's not like you're just reading this, you know, heavy. I mean, it would be hard to read just a full heavy book on grief.
Right.
It is,
Right, right.
but I think that there are spaces in it that give you some breathing room, and there's some. I mean, you know, there's some stories in there that there are some kind of humorous things about what people say and some
Yes.
stupid things that people say. They don't mean to be, you know, hurtful, but oftentimes they are.
Right.
So
Yes, and it is, even though the topic itself is hard and sad, it is very hopeful and very inspirational. So in that way, it's also extremely positive.
right, right.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Karen. What a pleasure, what an honor, not only to have you back on the show, but to be able to talk about this really hard, important thing you did that can really it can bring a lot of comfort. And I think that, gosh, there are just times when we all need that kind of comfort and so this would be a great resource for anybody.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for having me on again. It's always great to see you.
You too.